Hello everyone and welcome back to Blue Wizard Reviews, where we look at book-based movies and critique the deviations they make from the source. We're looking today at Harry Potter and the Order of the Pheonix. This movie, how can one movie be so bad and so good all at once? I mean, seriously, this movie has a split personality going on here. There are a bunch of really great things, but at the same time, there are a bunch of horrible moments. Well, okay, let's start from the top. The first thing that strikes me is how little time we spend in the Black House. I mean, this house is supposed to be absolutely miserable for Sirius to be in. It is loathsome and horrid, but in the book, we get the sense of helplessness that Sirius feels from being forced to live and hide in here. But in the movie, there's not that sense because we spend so little time on Sirius's past. Another thing that bugs me about this is how all of a sudden everyone is convinced Black is a good guy now. I mean, to be fair, we kind of rushed past it at the end of Book 4 as well, but here, the issue isn't even addressed. Although, I was very pleased to see Fred and George getting a bit more screen time, as they really have been underplayed in the last movies. And since SPEW never got to see the light of day in the last movie, Kreacher is unfortunately regulated to a little-known oddity, instead of becoming a key figure in Sirius's eventual death. So we progress to Hogwarts after this, where, unusual as it seems, we get a wonderful character to hate. To be fair, the only real villains so far that we've been given are Voldemort and Lucius Malfoy, and Barty Crouch Jr. There's been no real cause to actually hate Snape up until this point, since we haven't really been given a good reason to do so yet. At most, we have cause to greatly dislike him. And even Voldemort hasn't had a lot of screen time. And because of the blasted, twisted, and unsettling nature of people not taking his name seriously, we have no cause to fear him. But now, we get Professor Dolores Umbridge, a.k.a. Toadface. Beautifully, brilliantly, horribly, sickly, sweet, and twisted all at the same time. And here's the thing that sticks about her. She's so sure she's right. She doesn't want to kill like Voldemort, and doesn't get a great sense of enjoyment from actually doing the deed like Bellatrix, but she gains pleasure from the completion of the task. Any means to gain order, not for herself, but for order as she envisions it. And so, from the very beginning, we have cause to hate and despise her so wonderfully. She goes about doing her evil Umbridge thing. The best scene in the movie is here, I think. Everyone in this scene is just glorious. The only thing I don't like is that McGonagall finds out about Umbridge's use of torture on Harry. Instead of a shouting match about the owls, we instead have a nice little scene between the two of them, which honestly works out just as well. And then we come to our next little mistake, the spells. Before now, we never witnessed such a display of magic as we have in the DA. And here's the problem. The spells don't work like they're supposed to. Stunning spells in particular are supposed to stun, not just throw you back a few meters. Also, they're supposed to be red. And the reason I'm complaining about this is that the Order of Pheonix really was the book that expanded what magic was within this world. The different rooms in the Hall of Mysteries in particular. Besides that, we don't really get to see any new magic except the duel between Voldemort and Dumbledore. The scenes revolving around the DA are fairly good, including the creation of the Inquisitorial Squad, as brief as it is. My big problem with this is how the DA is found out. I almost missed Snape sneaking in that sentence about Cho succumbing to the Veritaserum, and you would think we would have gotten some kind of explanation from her trying to explain why she tattled, even if she herself didn't understand. But we get nothing, nada, just her looking shamefaced as if she confessed the whole thing of her own free will. Veritaserum doesn't give you a reason for why you're telling the truth, it just makes you spill. And there's no retribution from Hermione's curse, like in the book, from people signing their names to the list. Her character is so underdeveloped in the movies, you kind of don't care about her. I'll even go as far as to say that her character as is wasn't even necessary in the movies. I mean, just a little more plot development with the rocky relationship that they have would have been great. And then there's... Wait! Was that? Oh my gosh, Percy Weasley! I mean, we'll never see you again, nor have any clue why you're working with the Minister against everything the rest of your family is fighting for, but hi! We come to our OWLs, our ordinary wizarding levels, and dear Lord, do they butcher this. The first major problem is that they present it as being entirely subjective for the teachers. In the book, there's an outside objective board of examiners, and just as there are in real life for many significant tests, certifications, etc., I mean, the first thought that honestly popped into my mind is how are they going to keep Umbridge from just failing Harry because she wants to? Now, to be fair, the point of having Umbridge there then justifies having the Weasley twins come in and tear the place apart. Because heck, if she's going to mess with the scores anyway, why not disrupt something that would otherwise have a major determination on your future? In the book, Rowling keeps these two events separate, and I think for very good reason. This really shows off the Weasley twins, who honestly have just been portrayed in the books up until this point as a couple of pranksters. Here, when they go around the school setting off their fireworks and everything, we really get to see how their magical talent actually thrives in a certain setting. It really does speak to all those people who have fantastic talents, but that just don't manifest in the ways that they or their families want them to. It's also a slight jab at higher education, which sometimes is not needed for you to do what you love to do. And it just would have been so rewarding to see Umbridge racing around trying to capture and put out the Weasley's antics. Now, for the OWLs themselves, the separation really doesn't do that much for the scene in the book. It's more of a slight remembrance of things that have happened in the past, as well as a chance for Harry to show off his Patronus. The only significant event that happens here is something I was genuinely shocked to find out they didn't include, which is Umbridge's attack on Hagrid and subsequently Professor McGonagall's near-death experience. There really wasn't much of Umbridge's hate of non-wizards and half-breeds in the movies. Another regrettable decision of the movie that could have been used as a be more tolerant message to the masses. You can see she was disgusted with Hagrid, but it seemed more to do with his style of living than anything. In fact, the whole idea of wizard superiority continues to grow in this book, manifested first in Prisoner of Azkaban with the werewolf hate, added with the house elf situation in Goblet of Fire, and now with the blatant disregard of the rights of centaurs and other non-humans and non-wizards. The segue from the Weasleys' escape into the Ministry fiasco is very well done, and for the rest of the movie as well. Some impressive magical hijinks ensue, Dumbledore gives us his stirring performance, and this time our heroes end on a somewhat more deserving, somber tone. The last thing I want to touch on is the lack of Quidditch. This time, Quidditch is not just a fun-time sport. Just as Fred and George develop more in the books, so too Ron develops more as an actual character because he tries out for the Quidditch team. Ron's self-esteem really becomes a major focal point in several places throughout the story, adding another real-life stressor to the trio's friendship. In the movie, what we get instead is a Ron who becomes more and more an attractive match for Hermione. The book addresses that Ron really is the third wheel alongside famous Harry Potter and brilliant Hermione Granger. Ron isn't great at Quidditch, or anything else for that matter, but people don't have to be great at something to make a difference. Ron really is just the ordinary bloke, just trying to get along, and we get a chance to see that in the books. All we get from the movies is a fake bravado, and it's really a huge disappointment because a lot of us really identified with Ron. We wanted to be like Harry or Hermione. Heck, we could have even taken dying in a blaze of glory like Cedric to unassuming Ron. But Ron is us. He's the unassuming character, the one to whom no one expects much from. And yet in the books, we see he's more than just a throw-in character. He's a true friend to Harry, giving him that support that today, unfortunately, is largely undervalued and overlooked. But now, it's time for Nitpick Corner, where we pick apart every little misdemeanor the movie has made from the golden standard of the book. Harry's broom. Notice that when the Order arrives to pick up Harry, his broom is already outside of the house waiting for him. Secrecy, or rather the lack of it. Not only is Harry supposed to be camouflaged because they're all trying to ferret him away, but Muggles aren't supposed to see people flying on broomsticks. Buckbeak the Hippogriff. Along with seeing very little of the Black House, we also see nothing of Buckbeak. Prefix. Ron and Hermione are both made prefects in the books, while Harry is not. It's a great moment in the book that carries this underlying feeling throughout the story, touching on both Harry's resentment to Dumbledore and Ron's low self-esteem issues. Since the movie skips over the whole issue, it undercuts some of the emotions running through the whole story. The mirror. In the book, Sirius gives Harry a two-way mirror, which actually becomes extremely important in Book 7. After Sirius's death, Harry tries to use it to contact him again, somewhat selfishly. It's a nice little jab at the darker side of our hero's personality. In the movie, instead, Sirius gives Harry a picture of the First Order, which in the book is given to him by Hagrid. Flitwick. Why the heck is he teaching choir lessons? He's the charms teacher. Voldemort's name. If you all want to pause this right now and take a quick gander back to my first review, you'll remember I talked about this particular moment where Hermione is hesitating to say Voldemort, where in the earlier movies, she was saying it almost as much as Harry. Friends. No new divination teacher, again skirting around this idea of discrimination against other non-wizarding folks. The Order and Death Eater's methods of traveling. In Book 7, it's a huge surprise to everyone that Voldemort and Snape can fly. The movie here takes that and makes it a normal means of travel, probably something the Death Eaters were taught to by Voldemort and that Dumbledore gave to the Order as a way to copy them. And this is the only the second time I've said this, but I actually enjoy the change. The symbolism and overall idea that these two groups have a similar technique that they're using against each other is brilliant, and I really enjoy it. The Room of Requirement. This one is for the more philosophically minded and probably won't bother most people quite so much. In the book, the Room of Requirement requires the seeker to walk past it 3 times, thinking of what they need, thereby almost guaranteeing that you have to know it's there before you can find it. Neville just walks past it once and it's there, making it much easier to find. Also, how is Umbridge able to just blast into the room? The room was meant to be a place where the DA could hide, not a place that could be broken into. Wouldn't blasting into the wall not do anything? Or just blast into a different place? I mean, I suppose you could argue that because the requirements of the room specifically didn't protect it against being broken into, it's plausible you could do exactly what Umbridge did, but it still doesn't sit well with me. The pictures. The pictures are supposed to be able to move and communicate with each other and move between others' frames. If a picture of Fudge is there in the room, it would be able to at least hear everything that's going on and still communicate it to the actual Fudge. Umbridge would have known that, so it seems silly she would mention using an illegal curse even within earshot of the portrait. The same sort of thing goes for Sirius appearing in the Gryffindor common room. None of the portraits there seem to be perturbed by students conversing with an escaped murderer. Rita Skeeter. She doesn't appear at all in this movie, but the scene in the book is really great. It helps define Cho and Harry's relationship a bit better, and gives Harry a nice way to prove that he's actually telling the truth about Voldemort being back. That's all for now, folks. Join me next time as we look at Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.